All right. Hello, everybody. It's Kendra Corman here, and I am super excited to have one of my most favorite people in the world, Jamie Trull, here with me. She has transformed my business since I took her course in 2021. She is a profit strategist. Is that what you go by now?
I have far too many names, so that's probably the most the most applicable to this conversation. But yes, CPA, financial literacy coach, profit strategist, whichever one you want to call me.
Perfect. So I've been in business on my own since 2014, and I mean that was 7 years in business before I took Jamie's course in 2021, and I really learned a ton about pricing and expenses. Those were my two favorite modules. And I still use the worksheets that I got out of Financial Fitness Formula with Jamie today to quote jobs. So if I'm bidding on a new project or building a new website for a client, I'm always using these worksheets. They are core to my business. So, Jamie, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love hearing that, Kendra, honestly, just because that's really why we make them. And I love hearing your story of continuing to use things, not just during the time that you were doing the course and doing the work, but ongoing. That's really where the biggest benefit comes from. So I love hearing how you've been able to keep it going. And that just inspires me to serve as many more people as I can. So yes, I'm Jamie Trull. I have a million different names depending on what you want to go with. But basically, I am a giant numbers nerd. I love numbers. And even more than that, I love teaching entrepreneurs, small business owners, how to both understand their finances and feel really confident in them, and then help empower them to really be their own chief financial officer. So their own CFO of their business, which really we all are, right? Until we get to that like really mega millions point in time where we can go hire our own CFO to sit on our staff. That is really us, right? We make the financial decisions in our business. And so we need to feel empowered to be able to do that, right? To be able to set our prices, to be able to know where we need to spend money and where we don't need to spend money in our business, and to really be able to make those decisions, to be able to maximize our profit, to be able to pay ourselves, all the things, right? So that really, it comes down to us. So that's what I'm really passionate about, helping business owners understand and feel like excited about, right?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things when I took your course is like, oh, you'll be able to pay yourself. And I'm like, oh, she's going to tell me I need to take up my prices. And I'm like, I don't want to take up my prices because I want to be affordable. And that's one of the key tenets of what I created my business to do, is to make marketing affordable to companies. Well, there's a balance between making it affordable and like covering my costs. One of the big things that I didn't take into account before your course was, and I think a lot of us didn't in the course, was owner labor. And that's my time. So being able to scale just really wasn't an option because I couldn't afford to pay anybody else to do it because I was doing it for less than minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come up with all of this from a small business perspective? Because you worked for a Fortune 50 company before you went off on your own.
Yep, I did. So it's very different. It's really funny because when you take like how big business thinks about money and profits and all of that, and like we all probably have our thoughts about what we think about big business and how they feel about it, but man, they have their processes dialed in. They know, what they need to do. It's not an emotions game. There are no emotions to be had in the setting of pricing, in any of that, right? And so going into the entrepreneurial world, I expected it to be different. But it struck me how little of it was really based in any kind of calculation, and how much pricing was just based in, gut feeling or looking around at competition, or oftentimes underpricing because maybe we didn't feel confident. And so maybe if we don't price as high, then we don't have to deliver as much and there's not as much expectation. There's a lot that goes into it. And I think it's funny that you mentioned, Kendra, that you were like, oh gosh, she's going to just tell me to raise my prices, because I think that is so prevalent right now, is just raise your prices, charge your worth. That's my least favorite, by the way. I hate charge your worth because your worth is immeasurable. You can't charge your worth. That doesn't make any sense, but you do need to charge a price, right? That commiserates with what you are providing, right? You need to know that what you are doing has value, and you need to make sure you're valuing that. And specifically, so many business owners are the main person that are, delivering the product or service. Their time is the main cost, right? And when they're figuring out these prices, they are not factoring in that cost. And one of the symptoms that that that's a problem is exactly what you said, Kendra. If you can't afford to hire someone to help you, right? Because you don't have any money to pay them, because you wouldn't make any money then. And in fact, you might make less, right? That's a sign that you're not charging sustainable prices. And so I think that is the balance of, well, I want to serve this market, right? And I ran into this. Oh my gosh, I ran into this when I was a CFO, because I wanted to serve, the small business market, and not a lot of people could afford what I needed to be paid to make it make sense for me and my family and to keep the business going, which is ultimately the reason I pivoted into education to begin with, because I said, okay, how can I do this in a more affordable way than working with me one-on-one, right? How can I give people the same knowledge, the same understanding? How can I answer people's questions, but yet do it in a way where it's sustainable for my business and where I can impact more people? And so I think that those two things don't have to be in conflict. If you aren't making enough money to justify doing your business, then focusing on serving that market, you're not going to be able to serve that market for long anyway, right? You're not going to be able to. So you need to make sure that you have sustainable prices that are taking into account the cost of your time, the value of your time. And I don't mean the value of your time like on a, human level. I mean the value of your time on a I am working within my business providing a product or service level. And if I wasn't doing it, someone else would do it. And what would I have to pay that person, right? So really thinking it through, the value that has, and making sure that that's captured within your pricing. So I'm really big on formulas. It's not about just raise your prices, everyone. It's like, here's the formula for what is the sustainable price. Here's how you can make it so that it's easy. Especially like in businesses, like yours, right? Where you might be having new clients and they're all a little bit different. And so you can take that same formula and plug in those differences and come up with what a price that makes sense for you. And okay, this is going to be profitable. And even if they say no, that's okay, because going lower means that you wouldn't be able to sustain yourself. So there's somebody else out there that will pay those prices, that will make it so that it makes sense for your business. And then you'll be able to give without resentment, right? Like, did you ever feel that when you were doing that?
I was actually going to bring that up when you started talking about, if you price it too low, or, don't take those jobs. And yes, no, I was feeling resentment.
Yeah.
And I was feeling frustrated. Like I didn't want to do some of the stuff I was doing, partially because it was like I was bitter about it. And it was all my fault. Like I totally get it now. But I really needed you to point that out. And those worksheets, just again, I use them at least weekly, sometimes more often, depending on how things are going. But it's an amazing tool. The other thing that you said I thought was interesting was that you just said that you did this so that it wasn't about working one-on-one with you. Yeah. But yet I felt like it was one-on-one.
Well,
in the course.
Yeah, that's sort of, we had to do a lot of thinking about, I don't want this to be another program that people take that like, it's just all on their own and you have to get through it. And if you get stuck somewhere, oh, well, right. Like so I was really passionate about some of this needs a little bit of help, a little bit of somebody being there to walk you through it so that if you get stuck, you can get past that. And so we tried to figure out, how can we do this? How can we scale this? How can we serve more people, but still have people feel like they're getting that one-on-one attention and that they still have like my help through this? And so that's why we structured it. We have bi-weekly Q&As for the whole 10 weeks during the program. And I answer 100% of the questions that are submitted. So that was something really like, we have been committed to that. And if we need to add another Q&A, we will, because I will answer 100% of the questions that come through, because I want to make sure that people are able to keep moving, right? And I know sometimes it's hard to analogize, like, okay, I heard this in the lesson, but this is my type of business. How does this, am I understanding how this would carry over to my type of business the right way, right? And so I love talking people through that and getting them to understand exactly how to apply it more specifically, because I think that that's what helps get people through it, right? Like one of the big things about our program is I didn't want it to be another program that has, I think online courses have like a 5 to 15% completion rate, it's really pretty low, like on the whole. And that's not what we wanted. So we have over a 50% completion rate. We're getting even higher than that now because we're continuing to put in new things to help people get through the course, to incentivize them to get through the course, to make it fun. I love gifts. So, just to put that out there, like I will do whatever it takes to get people to do the work because I feel so strongly about the impact it can have.
I don't have my CFO hat or my mug.
I don't think I have mine around, but I have some other things.
I'm looking to see if I got my sticker on my planner.
Coffee over here.
Oh, perfect. So, I think that's really great. I think, again, it did feel personal. It wasn't about raising prices. You didn't tell me how to run my business. No. You gave me the tools to make the decisions that I needed to make my business. And again, the reason I brought Jamie here to talk to you guys is because I do believe that this is a public service announcement for anybody that owns a business, because I do feel that, especially if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur running a small business with less than about 20 people, it really does add a lot of value to your business to really be able to handle your finances. And I wasn't scared of numbers to begin with. Like, I have a master's of accounting. I still didn't have a system to set my pricing.
Yeah.
Because everywhere I had set pricing, I was at a big company. There was a formula for it.
Yep.
But not really for my time and for what I was doing. And so that was just really eye-opening.
Yeah.
The other one the other module that I loved was expenses. I cut a ridiculous amount of expenses out of my business. And for those of you who are like me and have shiny object syndrome, it's like, ooh, look at this new tool. I love it. I want it. I'm going to get it. We analyzed all my expenses. I was able to cut a ton out of it, and look at expenses as investments and expenses. Yeah. So there is a little bit of difference. It's not all about the P&L or the income statement, right? You've got to look at those expenses a little bit as to what you're investing in the business.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So that's also one of the big things, because I think people also think they think two things when they come and talk to an accountant. Okay, they're going to tell me that I need to increase my prices, and they're going to tell me I need to cut out all of my costs. And that's not it at all. I actually don't believe in total bare bones. It's a matter of having that decision-making framework for what is, something you should spend money on. Because honestly, there is a counter person, right? There is a person who's not spending enough. They're not investing enough into their business in order to meet the goals that they have for it. And so that actually was me, which is part of, where my program will speak to either person, right? My program will speak to that person who's got shiny object syndrome and buying different things. And then that it will also speak to the person who maybe needs to invest a little bit more into their business in order to grow it. So I very much believe in that. Like, is it an investment? Is it an expense? Meaning, right? Is it an investment is something that you expect you buy something now, right? Or you spend money now with the expectation that will bring you more than the amount you initially spent later on into time, right? So it's a long-term investment. It's going to come back to you. It's going to come back to you, hopefully, in multipliers. Or maybe it comes back, maybe that investment is to save time, right? Because time and money, kind of in the same vein, especially when we're finally valuing our time, we understand that there is such a relationship between the two. So an investment is something that's going to, over time, be able to save you a meaningful amount of money, or make you a meaningful amount of money, or save you, a meaningful amount of time. And so when you look at your decisions that way, now, not 100% of the things we spend money on are going to be investments. We know that there are certain things that probably aren't. And that's okay, as long as it's done intentionally, right? As long as you know what? I'm still going to continue to buy these super fancy notebooks because I love them. And I want this Remarkable 2 tablet, and I love it, and it makes me happy. Great. But you want to do it in an intentional way, that you're deciding that, and that it's not that you're actually thinking through it. And then for certain types of investments too, it's also about kind of, making sure that you have the cash on the ready. So that's another thing that we do, is we kind of set aside some money to be able to spend and invest in our business. So for those of you who are on the side that I was on, where maybe you're not doing enough, this will help encourage you to say, look, I have a set aside amount of money sitting here to invest in something that's going to help me grow my business. I need to go find something to spend it on.
Yeah, no. And there were there were quite a few people in the course with me that
Yeah.
were that way. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But again, I think, and I was definitely way off track when it came to expenses versus investments too. I had a lot of expenses.
Yeah.
And so I was able to put that down. And then without increasing my revenue very much, in the first full quarter, I think, after I finished Financial Fitness Formula, um, I almost doubled my profits.
Yeah. And so let's talk. So that just made me think of something there, right? Where people might be like, "Oh gosh, cutting expenses, like I don't want to sit down and do that. I hate budgets. It makes it feel restrictive." But the great thing about this is when you budget in a business, different than a personal budget, personal budgets are a drag. Like you probably still should have one, but they're a drag because they are restrictive, right? They do feel
Mhm,
restrictive. You have to give up something in a personal budget. That's what it feels like anyway. In a business budget, you're really not giving up something, you're gaining something. And so when we think of it that way, when we're thinking about like, okay, by being more diligent in how I'm spending money within my business, it increases my profit. My profit is what is available for me to be able to distribute to myself as the owner, which then I can use on whatever the heck I want over here on the personal side, right?
mhm,
So I think that when we flip it a little bit and realize that it's not about restrictiveness, it's actually about like being able to increase that profit, being able to use that profit then to really meet your goals in both your business, but also your personal life and the things that you want and take that trip and retire early or whatever the heck your goals are. Right. When we start thinking of it that way, it becomes a lot easier to say, okay, you know what? I don't really need this. I don't really need this. I don't really need this. But I'm going to keep these three things. And I'm actually going to maybe invest a little more in these three things because they're actually making me more money. Right. So it just helps you to kind of be thinking about your business a little bit differently than maybe you would personal finances because they
mhm,
are, I think there's some similarities, but like overall, it's night and day. Rarely in your personal life are you investing into things outside of like if you're saving, putting money into an investment account, right? Or buying real estate, maybe. But most of the time in your personal life, you're probably spending money. But in your business, the majority of what you're doing really should be investing.
mhm. Yeah, and speaking of profits, you spell profit with 2 Fs.
I do.
So, yes.
I
So, I
promise
know
I can spell. I'm really good at English.
so in the comments, you'll see a link to, a landing page where you can get, a is it a worksheet?
It's a worksheet. Yep.
A worksheet on creating your own profit plan and
Mhm.
even a quiz to make your business more profitable in 2022 and where you go with that path. But I loved the fact I love how you did that with the 2 Fs on profit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that or a couple of the aspects in the profit plan?
Yeah. So the profit plan basically each letter stands for something and it stands for something that we need to be putting money towards. So I kind of look at it like I almost think of it and I don't tell you to go open 7 bank accounts. You can if you want to, but I kind of look at it as like different accounts, different things that you're putting money aside for. And there's different ways we cover within the program about how you could track that works for you. I think you use an app, right, Kendra?
I
Use
use
one.
YNAB.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So that's
Mhm.
one of the options that we give. But ultimately, you're kind of thinking about separating this money into different buckets. And so it's almost like sort of the envelope system a little bit for business, but you're earmarking it for certain things. So whether that's earmarking it for taxes, which obviously we need to do, right?
Yes.
And having that kind of set aside, or earmarking it for other things like, future, right? One of the F's in profit plan stands for future. That's for if you're, especially if you're wanting to retire early or just retire at all, right? To be putting money towards retirement or maybe paying down debt. That would also come out of there. And the second F is for fun. And the reason that profit has 2 F's is because you can't leave out the fun. And I think that that's one of the things that gets left out a lot when we're talking about financial plans is the fun part, right? Like when do we get to have fun? And I actually think that having a particular percentage of your profit that gets set aside towards fun, meaning maybe a trip that you want to take, I've got a hot tub in the back. That was to get my husband on board with this whole online business thing. And so that was the first thing that I saved for over time. And it was just a portion of my profits until we had enough to buy that thing or to go on that trip. Right. And so I think that that really helps to motivate us. And I believe as business owners who are largely in control of the amount of money that we make, right, I actually find that it motivates me even more to have a goal like that. And I make even more than, let's say I'm putting 5% of my profit. It motivates me to make sure my profit is as big as possible, right? And make more revenue and, be really diligent with my expenses because I know I'm going to get to that fun goal faster. And so to me, I actually think it's very well worth it to have a goal like that. And I think you'll end up actually making more in the long term when you do something like that. So that's why I'm not going to be that accountant that ever tells you like, don't do anything. Like it's all about just saving, saving, saving. Don't buy those lattes. Like that is not me. But I just want you to be intentional about it so that you can actually get towards, instead of, money kind of disappearing this way and that, you don't know where it went. You have tangible things that you really care about to show for it, right? That really resonate with your values and where you want to go with your life.
Yeah. So my first thing that I did with fun was I actually bought my husband a stationary bike. He needed a new one because he actually wore the other one out to the point where
Wow.
the seat cracked. It was like so bad. He needed a new seat and new bearings. And so I was like, you know what? For my fun budget, I'm getting you a new bike. And so he got a new bike. And I was really excited about that. But one of the letters in profit, of course, is O. And that's the opportunity fund.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you that I set money aside in that opportunity fund and was able to do 3 different things last year that, and I had ideas of what they were. And so I was budgeting for them in the opportunity fund,
Yeah.
but I had opportunities to take another course. And Jamie's was my first course. So just so you guys know, I was like, I don't believe any of this, but we'll see. And now I'm addicted
Now you're a
to
junkie.
your stuff. Yes,
I
I'm a
was the
junkie.
first
I'm
fix,
junkie on
now you're a
anything.
junkie.
I'm a junkie for anything that Jamie recommends. But so I did that. So I was able to take another course. I was able to buy another piece of software.
Mhm.
Even with the expenses piece, I now save up so that I have a whole year of a system that I can pay in advance, so
Wow.
that rather than paying month to
Yes.
month on a lot of things, I think I asked this in the course. It was funny. I was like, well, like what percentage savings does it make sense to like pay it in advance? And you're like, you can get less than 1% in your checking account. Why are you, or savings account? Why are you keeping it?
Yeah, if you've got the
there?
cash flow, right? And that's what it comes down to. And that's why it opens up so many, when you have the cash flow to do these things, you can make all kinds of positive financial decisions that you wouldn't necessarily be able to make, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes when you're doing those monthly plans instead of the annual plans, what's really happening is it's almost like you're getting a loan, right? Like it's
Yeah.
almost like because you're getting charged, essentially you're getting charged interest on the fact that you're paying over a period of time. And usually it's a pretty sizable amount, really.
Well, I did the calculation. I mean, it was 10 to 15% on all the
Yeah.
different softwares software that I use to run my business. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. Once
Mhm.
I changed those to annual billing and everything like that. I mean, I think last year, I think I cut $15,000. I mean,
Wow.
and I'm a small
Yeah.
little
It
$15,000 just by doing little things like
Mhm.
paying in advance and just things I didn't look at, because I think I did month to month on a lot of them, sometimes in the beginning because I didn't have the funds, but but as things advanced, it was like, oh, I don't necessarily know if I need this.
Yeah.
And then I did, but I never changed the billing.
Yeah.
So looking at it and taking that time to look at it is really important.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. And then I guess, do you have any other advice for anybody that's there, or thoughts of anybody that's thinking about getting a better hold on the management of their financials and their business?
Well, I think it's one of those things where I always look at, making decisions around a year from now, I'll wish I started today, right? So I think that finances is the perpetual, I'll deal with it later. And I get that. I know why we feel that way. But the return, and what I love, like, so people get a return even within the 10 weeks, right?
Mhm.
But the real return is like the overtime return. So you save $15,000 that year and every year after that, right? Like,
Yep.
so you want to get that ball rolling as early as you can, because that means you're going to be in a better spot next year, right? And so I think that what people have told me that get through the program and that have these great results, they almost always are like, man, I wish I had found you earlier. And I'm like, no, 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 like you don't want to feel like shame or worry about that. You found me when you're supposed to. But it's one of those things where the earlier you start, you'll be glad that you did it. You know what I mean? You'll have these tools, you'll be able to implement them. And we're only opening Financial Fitness Formula one time this year. So this is we're doing it one time. We wanted to go full bang, like let's, go all in on this. But this is the only time that you'll be able to get in until 2023. So for me, that's where I'm kind of like, okay, I want to get people in. I want you guys to jump in because I want you a year from now to just feel totally different with your finances. I want you, it hasn't even been a year, Kendra, right? For you, you were last, gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Right
I was
now.
in the course right now last year.
Right now you just started the course, right?
Yeah.
And so it's aren't you glad you started it when you did
Oh my
versus
God.
where
No,
you would be?
again, it changed my business. I did not think it was going to change it or me to the level that it did. But, I was even able to get my husband involved in the expense activity because he has way less emotions to me. I'm like, oh, I can't cut that. I can't cut that, but I need that. And he's like, well, why? He goes, okay, so you need to set aside a weekend to like move files and save
Yeah.
$900. Do it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, it was actually fun because the two of us made it into a game as we spent like 3 hours working with Verizon.
I
But,
love that.
again,
I don't love that, but
yeah, no, but, it was, we were able to get rid of the home internet and
yeah.
adjust our plans so that it was a better fit. It's just things
Yeah.
we didn't take the time for. And
Yeah.
again, I with a very little change in my revenue, I was able to double my profits almost
Yeah.
in the first 3 months following the course.
Yep. Yep.
And
I
so
remember seeing that update from you and I was
I was
like, we were celebrating.
I was so excited. And again, it didn't change my delivery to my clients. It
Yeah.
didn't change what they get. You didn't tell me how to run my business. And again, I said that before and I'll say it again. That was like the biggest thing that held me back. The one thing though that you did say that actually sold me on the course was this is not for you if you can't afford it.
Mhm.
So, when you're looking at Financial Fitness Formula, if you need to take out a loan or you're going to try and charge it on a credit card with money that you do not have, that is not a good investment, um, to pay those interest rates and things like that. So you want to make sure that, if you can't afford it, then now is not the right time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said in the course with opportunities is there's always another opportunity. So Financial Fitness Formula may only be opening up once this year.
Yep.
But my expectation is that we will be opening up again in 2023.
Yep.
So, yes, you'd like to start today, but don't put yourself into financial stress for it.
Yes.
And, I loved that. I loved that you were like open and honest about, hey, this is not about just selling anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And so I really did appreciate that. But you did change my business and my life and my outlook. And I'm a lot happier in my business since taking the course. It was just such a huge, huge life change. So
Yeah.
I appreciate all of your worksheets
Well,
that I
you're
use on
like
a
a
regular
model
basis.
student.
Yeah.
You are a model student. And talking about, what you just said, I feel like it would be a little off brand of me as the person who tells you, who teaches people how to, spend yesterday's money and not tomorrow's money to then go tell you to run out and, put this on a credit card or use, take out a loan to do this. Right. I feel like that puts pressure. And so for me, if you're not in that place, like start putting some money aside for maybe the next time that we open so that you have it ready to go. Right. Obviously, I think
Mhm.
it's a good investment, but I don't like the pressure. I don't want you to feel that, weight of debt. Right. Because I just
Mhm.
feel like, that's not a healthy place to be. And so I'm always very wary of people who tell you, oh, just, like it's worth it. Go put it on a credit card because we were selling this while pandemic and all the things, and so if your business isn't making money right now, maybe come back to this later, right? Like
Mhm.
it will be there. Our program is not going away. If you're ready now, if it makes sense for you now, then I would absolutely love to have you, of course, because it's going to be amazing. We're really excited. We're trying some new things this time, so we're very excited about this this new class that we're going to be welcoming in pretty soon here. So
All right. Well, thank you again, Jamie. I hope that you guys got some great information out of this interview with Jamie. If you have any questions, go ahead, type them in the chat. I will make sure that I get them all answered. And if there's any questions that I need help from Jamie's team, I will definitely reach out to them and get those.
Yeah.
Also, be sure to click on the link that we're putting in the chat to go ahead and visit, get your create your own profit plan, and also take the quiz. It's actually a really good quiz, and it'll tell you a little bit about how to make your business more profitable in 2022 and where to go from there.
Yeah.
So thank you again so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kendra.